But Abe Froman's the Sausage King of Chicago.
Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Watch It Bro podcast. Happy Father's Day to Dad. I'm Tristan.
Happy Father's Day. And I am Marshall. I forgot. I almost forgot to say my name.
And today, if you are listening when this episode airs, is Father's Day. And today we are looking at one of my dad's favorite movies, The Frisco Kid, which I always thought was a Mel Brooks movie.
I did too.
But after watching it, definitely not a Mel Brooks movie.
No, but fun fact: the trailers for this movie played up the fact that he was in, like, showed clips from all the Mel Brooks movies he was in, like from Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. Now you see Gene Wilder as the Rabbi.
Maybe
So
that's why there was the association there.
could be.
But definitely, yeah, after watching it, it doesn't watch like a Mel Brooks movie at all.
No, it does not.
But yeah, so that's pretty much all of the pre-show banter I had. You want to get into the specs?
Sure.
And Marshall actually wrote them down this time and is going to take lead on the specs.
Yeah, about that. Uh, I did not write them down, so I'm hoping you actually have them written down.
Of course I do. I knew you hadn't. That was a joke.
It would be weird now if I did it.
It would be weird now if you did do it. But the Frisco Kid was directed by Robert Aldrich. It was written by, Michael Elias. I couldn't read my writing for a second.
Whoa.
Whoa. It was written by Michael Elias, Frank Shaw, and an uncredited Gene Wilder.
That makes sense that he would have some input in it.
Oh, of course. It stars Gene Wilder and Harrison Ford. And that's it. Everybody else is considered co-star, and so they're not mentioned on the Wikipedia. It was
Yeah.
released July 13th, 1979, which is funny because when Harrison Ford shows up, the first time I watched it with Rachel, I was like, wow, look how young Harrison Ford looks. I don't think I've ever seen him look that young. Yeah, this was a year after Star Wars.
Yeah. And he wasn't played up in the trailer at all. It was mostly just, this is a Gene Wilder movie.
Yeah, well, what had Harrison Ford really been in before that?
American Graffiti and Star Wars. But they didn't even bank off the Star Wars fame because it had come out the year before. So
Right. So that's our cast. That's our specs for the movie.
yeah. Fun fact too, they offered the role of Tommy to John Wayne initially instead of Harrison Ford. But he had to. Was this one of your fun facts?
No, I am just so glad that this part did not go to John Wayne
Yeah,
because
he had to decline the role because he was sick.
because John Wayne can't act.
John Wayne is just John Wayne and everything.
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the great things about John Wayne. But John Wayne does not fit into this movie.
No, I don't think so. I don't think he would. It would have been as good if he was in it.
No, because it would have, the fact that he was John Wayne would have overshadowed the fact that this is not a John Wayne movie.
Yeah, yeah. Because Harrison Ford doesn't show up till like 22 minutes in.
Yeah, I didn't time it, but okay.
Sorry.
Hey, no, if you had the stopwatch, more power to you. Let's get into the movie now. So we start out with the WB logo. I don't know. You do it with every movie. I figured I'd jump in and give it a shot. Don't feel any better about it.
It feels weird when you do
It
it.
does. Yeah. But we start off with this almost reverse James Bond type of opening.
Yeah.
It,
You mean no one's
that's
dying?
no, well, not no one dying, but it kind of like opens up. You know how the James Bond has the looking down the barrel of a gun kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of opens up to that kind of. It reminded me a bit of it.
Oh, it telescopes out as opposed to in.
Telescopes, yeah. It doesn't even telescope. It's just like
It's like,
literally a. Yeah. And then on the screen it writes Poland 1850. So now we know where we are and when we are.
Yes.
And from there it cuts to a bunch of old Jewish men talking at a table in Yiddish.
Yes. A lot of heated debate in Yiddish that I did not understand, and there was no captions for.
No, that it was apparently it's not important what they were talking about. But then we cut outside to Gene Wilder, whose character's name is Avram or Avram,
Avram.
depending on your accent,
Avram.
because the kid calls him Avram. And so
Yeah.
the kid opens the window and calls him, and he is being summoned by the Jewish Council,
Yes.
which I wrote that down. It's like, oh, the Jedi Council, the Jewish Council. And we get, I mean, the movie starts out with jokes, and I love
It
it, and it's great. So the
and
head,
it's I was just gonna say, it's definitely, it starts out with jokes, but as older movies, like the '70s and early '80s, the jokes are sometimes more subtle and not as in your face.
yeah,
And this movie lets things rest as well. It's not just boom, 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 boom. I mean, that's a testament to older movies.
right. You get a
Um,
chance to enjoy the joke,
yeah.
and they give you time to sink in,
Yes.
because they're not always so obvious. And so the Avram is talking to the head rabbi of the Jewish Council, and he says, "I need to talk to you privately. Speak in English and don't smile." And the first thing he does is smile, and that causes an uproar.
Yes. Because the Jewish council thinks he's being happy and getting what he wants,
Right. And I guess
which they don't want him to have.
right, and which I guess which paints the scene right now is to paint this, or we'll get there in a second. He says, out of a graduating class of 88, you came in at a close 87.
Yeah.
Don't smile. And he smiles again. He goes, "Don't smile. Look sad." And it establishes from there that they are in San Francisco. They need a rabbi, and
Mhm.
he wants to send Avram, Avram, and so they put it to a vote, and they say who votes that they put it to a vote, and not a single member of the Jewish council raises their hand.
No. The only one that raises their hand for him is the kid.
I didn't even catch the kid doing that, but yeah.
Yeah, he's got his hand up there and smiling at him.
And, and so the head rabbi says, "Oh, very very close vote," but basically uses his executive order to grant Avram as the rabbi in San Francisco.
Yes. To continue with the Jedi Council metaphor, he goes all Palpatine and just makes the decision.
Yes, he does. And, and Avram's like, "Oh, where's San Francisco?" And he goes, "Oh, it's by New York." Which no, and so
No,
not
no,
even close.
it's closer to go from Poland to London than it is to New York, San Francisco.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a long way. It's a long way. So we do get a little narration from Avram as we cut to a boat, and he says that he is going over to Philadelphia, where all the brothers love each other. Philadelphia is known as the city of brotherly love.
Yes, Philadelphia
So,
is also known as the city that killed Hitchbot.
killed who?
Hitchbot. It's a hitchhiking robot that made it from one side of Canada to the other side of Canada, with people just picking it up, driving it away, setting us back on the side of the road, and just getting picked up and moving through Canada. When it came to the States, it started in New York and ended up in Philadelphia, where it got destroyed.
That's not very far.
No, it's not. Sorry, I derailed us again.
So good.
Our little robot didn't know it was going to happen. He's used to Canadians, not Philadelphians.
That's the first I've ever heard of Hitchbot.
It was it was a big story about, I don't know, 5 years ago or so.
Nope. All right.
And now you know.
You're welcome for all that.
I mean, to
Or
be
yes,
fair, never mind.
it's like Canadians are like, oh, let's get this robot across Canada, eh? And then it gets to Philadelphia. They're like, dude, a robot. Let's break it.
I mean, it's not too far off from what happens to Abram in Philadelphia.
Revenge spot.
It's Rabbi.
No. Nope. Nope. Spoilers. So we get to Philly. He's off the boat now, and he's looking to get another. I guess it's looking for a river boat to get to San Francisco.
I assumed it was a bigger vessel that went south around the Panama Canal
Okay.
because I know a lot of boats were doing that back then for the gold rush.
Okay. So they got him into Philadelphia, and then he was gonna go back out and around
Right,
Florida.
right. Whatever
To,
boat he
through
was
the,
on wasn't going to San Francisco. It
okay.
was just
Yeah.
a
It
Philadelphia
was
hub, and then from Philly it went to San Francisco through the Panama Canal.
okay. That makes sense. But so yeah, he's in line, and they're trying to get on the boat, and the attendant informs them all that the boat took off yesterday because there's a gold rush, and so and the next boat is not for another 2 months. And everyone is mad, angry, and there is a very distraught man crying because they had just gotten the news that Ma is taken mighty powerful sick.
Yeah. Also, since after I said it, I had to check. Panama Canal wasn't constructed until 1904, so it may have been a river to boat to get him further inland, or going all the way down and around.
Yeah, either way. But
But do with that as you will.
yes. So we have distraught stranger sharing his woes with Ivram. How they had sold their horse and carriage for the money to get the ticket, and now there's no refund on the ticket, and so they're stranded and they can't go see their dying mother in San Francisco.
Right. A big,
So
big old sob story.
yep, and he is sobbing, and Abrams says, well, maybe if he went back and explained the situation, if he was a decent man, then he would return everything and take his money back and give you back your horse and carriage, and you could be on your merry way to San Francisco.
Right.
Which, very reasonable.
Yes.
And so he says, that sounds great. Can you do it for me, though? Because all I do is cry. So he drags Abram with him to go see the man
Yep. He
and
and drags
explain
him
that.
by grabbing his luggage.
Yep, grabs his luggage for him and just starts walking. And they go back to the man and explain their tales of woe. And the guy's like, sorry, I only buy and sell to make money, so I'm not doing anything. If I'm not going to make a profit, Abram steps in and says, how much profit do you need to make? The guy's like, I need $50. Abram's like, well, if I paid the $50, what then? And so at first, the strangers are like, no, we could never possibly repay you for that. And the crying guy that we meet tells his brother, who Rachel insists looks exactly like you.
Maybe a little bit. He's got the goatee going on and the longer hair. And
So she calls him Marshall throughout the whole movie.
okay.
Both times we watched it.
Yeah.
It pops up, it's Marshall. Sure. Marshall was in this movie. Marshall was on
Oh.
Friends. Marshall's everywhere. Marshall's a time traveling skinwalker.
I'm okay with this.
Fair. Okay. So Abram says if he would be willing to put up the $50 if they would let him ride with them to San Francisco, and he'd even share the nice cushion that they apparently have.
Yes, yes. They said that if he was willing to do that, they'd give him a nice cushion. He's like, I'd be willing to share the cushion.
Very nice man.
Yes.
And so they all happily agree. And from there, we cut to a family in San Francisco that is apparently part of the Jewish community in San Francisco who is awaiting the rabbi and the Torah. And they're
Yes.
reading a letter from Poland. And we also learn that Abram is promised the man's oldest daughter, Sarah Mindel, is hand in marriage.
Yes, but she's all flirty with.
Yes, she wants to marry
I was
the.
just I don't know who he is.
He's just some guy,
Yeah,
and she she does not want to be married to the rabbi. She wants. It's all very Fiddler on the Roof.
yeah.
Anywho, so we cut back to Avram on the carriage, and they're all riding, and I didn't catch the first guy's name.
Daryl.
Daryl. That's it.
Come on,
Daryl.
brother.
Spoilers. So Avram and Daryl are riding in the front of the wagon coach. Marshall's on the side.
Oh, we're calling him Marshall for the movie.
Yep.
Okay.
And then Daryl shares his apple with him, and he's like, "Oh, here's the shortcut." And immediately, I'm like, "Shortcut, bad idea."
Yes. Shortcuts are always bad ideas. He says it will
Always.
knock 4 days off the trip or something like that.
Yeah, it was 4 days.
Yeah.
And so they start going on the trail, and then you see hiding not very well behind a tree is a man on a horse, and it is the salesman that they got the horse and carriage back from, which
Mr.
leads you
Jones.
to okay. Was his name
Sorry.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, his name was Mr. Jones.
We see Mr. Jones, and now we know that there is trouble afoot.
Yes. Yes, we
There
do.
is there is a plot afoot. Plot. Uh,
Yeah, plot.
and so from there, Mr. Jones comes around behind the
Wagon.
wagon carriage, hops on, and starts to beat up Avram.
Yes.
This spooks the horses. The horses start running, and Avram, I guess, finally realizes that they're all in cahoots and he's getting robbed.
Yeah. Yeah. He's putting up a good argument at the moment. He's like, I paid the $50. What's going on? Why are you being mean? It's a rough scene
Yeah,
to
it
watch.
go,
It's like, oh,
it
this
gets
is not good.
it gets dark pretty quick because then they take his clothes off
Yeah.
and they start throwing all of his stuff out the back of the wagon.
Yes.
And you don't really know what's going on. You're kind of as confused as he is, because they
Yes.
don't they don't specifically just say, "Give us the rest of your money." They beat him up and they rummage through his person and his possessions
Yeah.
looking for it. So
Yeah. Just
it
toss him.
makes it even worse because they're throwing his stuff all over the road,
Yeah.
and then they eventually throw him out.
Yep. And
And
then
then
Daryl Matt is the actual name of um the guy that looks like me. And then Mr. Jones right off.
yes, they all ride off, and Abram just kind of stands there, taking in the gravity of the situation that he is now a part of. And from there, we get him running backwards down the road, gathering his things along the way, while we get more credits.
Well, we get the credits.
Right, we got some opening credits at the very beginning.
Got some opening credits, and normally you get like a little scene, and this is 16 minutes in that the credits are still rolling now. It's a long opening shot.
Rolling again.
Yes, continuing to roll.
Yes. And so we cut to some time passage. He's put himself back together. He's hiking kind of aimlessly on his own. And he runs into some people who also look Jewish to
Yeah,
him
yeah. From
from a
from far
distance.
away, you look at them. They got the big hats like he's wearing. They got beards. They're working the field.
Yep. And so reaches out to them and runs and just decides he's not going to go around the pond and he's just going to run right through it.
Yeah, it looks like it might have been a little creek or something that he had to go through anyway.
To me, it looked like it was just like a little swale almost.
Oh well, he was in a bad spot, so he's happy to see somebody.
Yeah. And so he catches up with them and he starts frantically speaking to them in Yiddish.
Yes,
And
and
they're looking at him like, "What?"
yeah, and they start speaking back in German.
Right. And then they finally both agree that English is going to be the language that they're going to talk in.
Yes.
And that's when Abram starts to check them out a little more thoroughly and he sees the Bible in the one guy's
Mhm.
breast pocket and the Christian cross. And he's like, oh, and we say, Gavalt and passes out.
Yeah.
And so they nurse him back to health. And there's some really creepy kids watching him.
I mean, what else are they gonna do?
But they don't have to be so creepy.
I watch him while he's doing his morning prayers.
they watch him then too, but they're also watching him tossing and turning in the bed. And then we cut from there to him doing his morning prayers, and everyone's kind of working and watching him, and he's doing his prayers, and he's watching everybody watch him. And so from there, it cuts to him getting in one of their carriages, getting ready to leave, and one of the Amish leaders, I guess. Are they
Yeah.
Amish or are they Mennonites? Or am I splitting hairs here?
I I don't know enough about it to say one way or the other. I assumed Amish.
Okay, we'll go with Amish. If I'm wrong, feel free to write us at watchitbropodcast@gmail.com.
I mean, if
And
they're Amish, they won't be listening.
I bet if you know whether or not the anyway, Amish or Mennonites,
Yes.
they send him off with some money for the train, and he's very grateful and takes the money, and then he gets into the carriage and they go down the road. And as they're going, we have a nice little exchange back and forth, and we learn that Avram grew up on a farm and his father was a farmer, and the guy giving him a lift asks how come he's not a farmer, to which he replies, because I'm a rabbi. And the man asks again, why did God make you a rabbi? And Abram replies, probably because he had enough farmers. Which I just thought that exchange was funny.
I yeah, it's good, and it's see the humanity with the Amish. The guys, the actors are credited as Amish.
You just looked it up?
Yeah,
Okay.
just
And
if you
then
wanted to keep that into.
I will. Maybe.
That's fair. But
And
yeah,
and so we cut to the train. This movie does jump around a lot. It just kind of it gets where it needs to. It cuts at to scenes where it needs to be
yeah,
without so
it's
much explaining how to get there.
yeah. I mean, it's a road trip movie,
Yeah, we are in another road trip movie.
road trip western, but it's I mean, it's Philadelphia to San Francisco on foot and horse. Trains a little bit, but
Trains, animals, and feet.
yeah. So it's a long trek, and
You
gotta
need to gloss
gotta
over
chill.
details to get there.
Yeah. I
And
got to a point. I'm like, what am I talking? What am I saying? Do I have a point?
no,
I'll let you continue. We're on the
thank you.
train.
So we cut to the train, and the whole car is playing Simon Says. Except they're doing Simple Simon Says, which I've never heard of. And I looked it up, and I didn't see any record of it being Simple Simon Says.
Okay.
I looked up Simon Says, and all it said was Simon Says, not Simple Simon Says. So I don't know.
I mean, maybe whoever wrote it was confusing Simple Simon, the pieman, with Simon Says, and just kind of threw it all together, or I,
Maybe.
I don't know.
But they're playing Simple Simon Says as their game. And the little girl is apparently Simon. And she says for everyone to put their hands on their nose.
Yes.
And Avram is not doing this.
Nope. He's not part of the game at the moment.
Nope. And so she taps him, and she says it like 3 or 4 times, and then finally she taps him and like directly gives him orders, and implies very harshly that he needs to be doing it as well.
Right. Do the
And
thing. We're playing.
yeah, and this whole time, the mom is watching and waits until he actually plays along to turn to her daughter and say, "Hey, don't bother him."
Yeah. Yeah. Just okay. He's playing along, and like, stop doing that. I wanted to see if he'd do it, but stop
Yeah,
it.
yeah. You got him. Okay, quit it now. And then Abram gets some company on the train.
Yeah.
Someone sits down next to him, and
A
shortly after,
lady.
a lady sits next to him on the train, and he shortly after that excuses himself to use the restroom.
Yes.
And it turns out he sings while he pees.
Yes.
And while he walks in, he passes a man who is washing his hands and face in the sink. And as Abram's in the bathroom, the man walks out with a bandana tied around his face and robs the train. Very cleverly, actually.
Yes. It is very cleverly.
He, if you hadn't seen it or didn't watch the movie, he tells everyone not to turn around because his partner is back there with the shotgun and has no desire to be recognized.
He says
And
he'll
they're
blow off
gonna,
anyone's head that looks.
yes. And then he says they're all gonna play like they're at church and they're gonna give to the offering bag.
Yep.
And then he collects from everybody and then he says, all right, I'm jumping off here. and looks at the back and says, "Jake, you get off at the next bend. I'm jumping here." And jumps off the train, and everyone's still looking forward with their hands on their heads.
Yep.
At which point Abram comes out of the restroom, sees everybody with their hands on their heads,
Hmm.
takes his seat back where he was, puts his hands on his head, and says, "Simple Simon Says, everybody laugh." And apparently he's the only one that gets the joke because nobody's joining with him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's decided to play.
Yeah. And so we cut to him exiting the train at the next station, and he has more narrations over.
Yeah.
This is where we learn, if you're not familiar with Jewish culture, Saturday is their Sabbath, and so they don't work, ride trains, ride horses, anything like that on the Sabbath, and their Sabbath actually starts on Friday
Yep.
at sunset.
Yep.
So it goes from Friday sunset to Saturday at sunset.
So he gets off the train and starts walking.
So we cut to him in line getting ready to work at the railroad station. And while he's in line, there's a man behind him named Mr. Ping who is giving him a hard time, telling him he looks funny, talks funny, and dresses funny.
Yes.
And eventually he gets to the front of the line, he gets hired on, it cuts to them pounding a railroad spike into the ground.
Yes.
And he hits a man named Paco, right?
Yep. Paco.
He hits his foot multiple times
Yes, he does.
and does not get beaten up by it.
No, no. Every time he does it, he is quick to jump up almost into Paco's arms, start stroking his face, saying, "I'm sorry, Paco. It's okay."
Calming him very
Yes.
much. But what sets it off finally is Paco, it's break time. Paco has sat down and Abram is getting everybody water in buckets and he turns and smacks Paco in the side of the head, knocking him over. And he drops the buckets and runs.
Yeah. He's like, "I'm sorry, Paco," as he's running away.
And then we cut immediately to him asking Mr. Ping and Paco where he can buy a horse. They're trying to
Yes.
get him to stay, work for a few months, and buy a carriage to San Francisco
Right. So
and
they
do
can
it.
all go together, and Mr. Ping says he'll make a restaurant, and they'll all have good times.
Yeah, he coming up with a plan, and Abram's not having it. He says he's late already. He's got to get going.
Yep. He's earned enough money to get the horse and some supplies, and he's time to move
Yep. And Mr. Ping says, "Bye. You're gonna get lost."
on.
And then we cut to Abram riding on a horse, and he's lost.
He is lost.
And he ends up setting up camp, and we see him snuggling with raccoons.
Yes.
Fun fact:
Raccoons don't go out there.
there's no way there would be raccoons there. They're woodland creatures.
I know. He's in the middle of the plains. The only tree nearby is this tiny one that he's kind of camped against, but I'm like,
There's no way there would be raccoons there.
they needed something, some menacing, not menacing, some nuisance creature.
Yes. So he wakes up to the raccoons, and the raccoons have eaten all of his food.
Yes.
And so he chases the raccoons off, and subsequently chases his horse off as well.
Yes. And he has to go chase his horse.
Yes. Which he always, throughout the whole movie, he refers to the horse, as Horsey.
Yes, he does. It's like, come
And
back,
Rachel
horsey.
thinks and Rachel thinks that is just the cutest thing in the world. And comments on it and giggles every time he does it.
Yeah.
It's great. And so I don't know if we call this a montage, but we cut to him. They're doing a big passage of time here of him traveling, and he's riding in the rain, then he's trying to chase down chickens, and then
Yep.
he's trying to spearfish with a stick.
Yeah, it's a little traveling montage of what he's been going through. The
Yeah.
the rain, not getting food, attempting to get food, not getting food,
Yeah. And then Harrison Ford, who I'm just gonna name the character now because they never really do.
He says Tommy a couple times.
Mostly they call each other cuz and part.
Yeah.
So Harrison Ford's character's name is Tommy. Tommy
Yes.
stumbles upon him and shoots a fish for him, and then
Yes.
asks him how hungry he is, and he says, "Oh, I'm pretty hungry," and so he shoots another fish. Which, fun fact, if he had actually taken that second shot, he would have shot Abrams square in the legs.
Yeah. I mean, that was a shotgun, wasn't it?
I think so.
Okay.
It looked like, yeah, it didn't.
It had
Yeah,
the double barrels and everything.
double barrel shotgun.
Yep.
So maybe it was a rifle. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know guns that well. All I know is where he shot. Odds are that bullet would have gone through that fish and into Abrams' legs.
But movie got a movie, so that didn't happen.
Movie got a movie indeed. That's like your catchphrase.
Yeah, I got a catchphrase.
And so, good, good for you. That, that'll just be the podcast's catchphrase. Watch it, bro. Movie's got a movie.
That I do need some quotes
Oh, you do?
eventually.
So we cut to them eating the fish. It's nighttime now. They've camped. They're cooking their dinner and getting to know each other. And Tommy asks where he's coming from, and he's like points behind him and goes, "From there." And Tommy's like, "Oh, so you're from California?" Just to reiterate the fact that he is in fact lost.
Yeah. Yeah,
He
he's
is
like,
very
"That
lost.
California's that way?"
Yeah, he's very surprised that California is in fact that way. And so they're still chatting with each other, and Abram threatens to fight him for the last bit of the fish. Says,
Yeah.
"I'll fight you for that last fish." And Tommy's like, "You really think you have a chance?" And he's like, "I'm absolutely positive I have no chance whatsoever, but I'm still hungry." Gene Wilder is so subtly hilarious throughout this whole movie, and I find it almost impossible to believe that that is Willy Wonka.
Yeah. I mean I mean, Gene Wilder was a fantastic actor, and it shows because of the different roles he takes, how he is.
Right. He's just he can play so many characters that you don't even
Yeah. I mean, Willy Wonka, um,
Dr. Frankenstein,
Dr. Frankenstein. Yes.
this one.
I can't remember the name of the movie, but he's playing the blind gentleman
What?
with Richard Pryor. Was he deaf if Richard Pryor was blind in that?
So it's morning time.
That's probably for the best.
Yep.
He kind of
And
petered out there.
yep. And so we're packing up and we're going over the directions on how to get to San Francisco.
Yes,
I thought
yes.
about writing them all down, but I decided I didn't want to read them off and I didn't want to repeat them. But the directions are pretty straightforward on how to get to San Francisco.
You go this way for a while, you turn left, make a hard left with the mountains on one side, you keep going, you turn right at the desert, you keep going till you get to the ocean. You know, very
Yeah.
basic directions. Those are not them, but
Okay.
it's
I, w-
it's
I was gonna let you go because I thought you had written them down, and I go, "Oh, let's see what happens here."
Nope, I didn't write them down, but that's basically the instructions. Go this way, turn left, keep going until you see this thing. He says, Go till you see a large tree." Which is like, that's
It's
that's
just the one.
yeah. Like where are they at the moment?
And that's one thing is they never actually establish where they are
True.
until they do it when they get to the mountains,
Yes, yes, when they get to the mountains.
which we'll be
But
coming up on here in
until
a little
then,
bit.
it's just like we're in the plains.
They're in the Midwest, and the Midwest has a whole lot of nothing.
Yes. I mean, sorry if you're fun with Midwest, but there's a lot of nothing out there.
And by nothing I just mean it's a lot of very flat land.
Right, right. Yeah.
And so Avram takes off again in the wrong direction. And then
Yes, Tommy's like, "No, no. What are you doing?"
that that way, and he's like, "Oh, of course I know it's that." He's getting indignant that he has no idea where to go anymore. Because of course I know it's that way. I gotta go around that stump right there, and you can't turn horses too quick. That's how accidents happen. And then he falls off his horse.
Yep. And I don't know what it is, but whether it is the fact that Avram showed Tommy kindness or just how nice of a man Avram was, but Tommy has already taken. I don't want to say a liking, but he's like he there's something there that is like, okay, fine. You look at the back of my horse. What do you call this?
Oh yeah, he points to the horse's rear and says, "What do you call this in Jewish?" And he
Says
goes,
focus.
"Tuchus." And then, yeah, Harrison Ford says, or Tommy says, "All right, you don't take your eyes off this Tuchus until I tell you to." And then it cuts to the next scene with them on horseback and Abrams in front.
Yes. Yes. But he's in that morning they were gonna split up and Tommy's decided to just take him.
Because he was going to die if he didn't.
True. True. But I mean, like I said, I don't know exactly what it was, whether it was the friendship, the kindness, the whole interaction that night, but he's like, okay, I gotta save this guy.
Yeah, he felt some kind of obligation to help this
Right.
guy out.
I mean, because we saw him rob a train, and now he's helping this guy out. I mean, there's a heart there to Tommy too.
Yeah. And so as they're walking along, they discuss Tommy's choice in his favorite bad word
Yes.
and that he says a lot. And the reason I'm mentioning it, it's not family. I'm gonna do it in a family friendly way, but it was very funny to me.
Yes.
So just the way Gene Wilder did it, because he asked, "Why do you say it? What does it mean? Why do you say that word?" And Tommy's like, "Well, don't you have a word in Yiddish where that you say when you're surprised at something?" And he's like, "Yeah, oi gewalt." And he's like, "Yeah, same thing." And so Abram tries it out and goes, "Yeah, that makes sense."
Yep. It
And then
works.
just accepts it, and it was very funny to me. Not family friendly, particularly, but funny. So I do apologize for that.
Well, yeah, we'll keep going.
Yeah, I can't go back right now.
No, no, it's just it comes up again later. It actually, I think, just a few minutes.
Yes, it does. There's a joke there. That's why I brought it up. So they're looking for a crossing, and they come up to a river,
Right.
and then Harrison or Tommy's like, "I'm gonna go further down the river and look for a good place to cross." And Abram's like, "Why don't you just jump in and go across here? It's slow. It's fine."
Yeah.
And while he's
The the
pleading his
the man who
what?
knows nothing about the wilderness is like, let's just jump in and go.
Yeah, yeah. And so while he's pleading his case or making his point, he almost steps on a rattlesnake, and then we get the face that I end up making for the cover of this movie.
Yes.
That is where that face comes from that I have to make. At which point the horse gets spooked and charges forward and jumps into the river.
Yes. The
And
horse.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, no, I'll let you do it.
And the horse jumps into the river. And as the horse is falling, Abram uses
Tommy's.
Tommy's choice phrase. And after seeing this, Tommy's like, well, I'm not going to let this guy show me up. And so he follows suit. And when he jumps off, he says, Oe Gewalt.
Yes.
So very, very subtle joke there of them switching. I don't want to say profanities, but
Exclamations.
exclamations. Yeah.
Exclamations. Similar to was it Back to the Future when Marty says great Scott and Doc's like, "This is heavy."
I honestly don't remember that.
I believe it's in the third one, I think.
Oh, that's funny. So,
Sorry.
no, it's fine.
Derailed.
And so we cut to San Francisco briefly, and it looks like they're building a temple there in preparation for the rabbi to show up. And
Mhm.
and Rosalie is talking to her father, and the father notices that Sarah Mendel is talking to her little boyfriend, and he puts a stop to that. And then we cut back to Abram and Tommy, and they are looking for a place to sleep. They find a place to sleep.
Yes.
It's in a stable, a barn.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so this movie, some of their scenes, they're like that. The scenes where they cut back to San Francisco, there's almost no point to them, and it seems more like they're just doing them so we don't forget.
Yeah, I mean, it's letting us know. Also, I've watching this movie, Harrison Ford gets this is his angriest character I think he's ever played.
I don't know. Does that
He
mean it's
yells
the
at
one that's most like him?
no,
Harrison Ford just strikes me as a very angry man.
no, he's chill.
Are you sure?
Yes.
That wasn't sure at all.
Well,
No, I think.
I say that because he's about to yell at Abram for the first time,
Oh,
and he
yeah, he
yells
is.
at him like 6 or 7 times.
He does. And I was gonna say his character in The Fugitive was also pretty angry.
Well, yeah.
But I digress.
Yes.
So
I don't know if that's important.
they're in a barn, and Tommy wants to. He says it's warm here, it's cozy, it's cheap. Why don't we wait out a couple months till the weather gets real nice, and then continue along?
Yes.
Abram ain't having it, and he says he's going to leave in the morning. And then they have an argument about how Abram's gonna die out there, and Abram's like, "Yeah, no, I'll be fine."
Yeah.
And Tommy's like, "Well, I'm not going with you." Abram's like, "I'm not asking you to." And then he says, "Thank you for everything that you've done for me, and all the times you were there for me, except when I needed you the most."
Yeah. He's like, "I'm not asking you to come with me, and thank you for everything up until you abandoned me, but, I'm not asking you to come."
I'm just gonna guilt trip you for not.
Yeah.
The subtleties of Gene Wilder's acting in this throughout the whole movie, his facial expressions, his his eyes, his tonalities, perfect, just amazing. Amazing acting on his part.
Yes.
And so they both angrily turn over to go to sleep, and it cuts to them riding through a blizzard.
Yes.
Well, riding through the snow. It's not a blizzard right now. They're just riding through the snow. And Tommy makes a smart aleck comment, and Abram makes a smart aleck retort.
Yes.
And then we kind of get not really a montage. They kind of bicker a little bit through the snow as the snow picks up, and then it shows them in a blizzard, real bad. And Tommy tells him to lay down his horse for cover and to keep the horse alive. And
Yep.
they create this little like embankment between the two horses, and they cuddle up next to each other to keep warm. And it's a funny moment
Yeah. Yeah.
that they have there. Abram's like, "We're doing this to keep warm, right?" And Harris and Tommy's like, "Of course." And he's like, "All right, then you can hold me." And he
Yeah.
just wraps him up, and he's just like, "Come here, darling." And then Abram smiles and goes, "This is nice." They're definitely bonding as much as they, bicker back and forth, and then they have they're in a blizzard, and their lives are at risk, and they can still have fun with each other. So, way to keep morale up. And then we cut to the next day, and
Yep.
they're riding through the mountains.
Blizzard has
And
passed. It's still snowy, but,
yeah, still snowy, weather's better, but they're riding through. And I think it shows a little bit of time passage through them riding through the mountains. And then they arrive at a town, and they are in the Wild West, says Abram.
yes.
He
Which,
loves it. The towns don't have walls.
to say, I mean, based on what I know of geography, after they're going over the mountains, they're probably in like on the west side of Colorado after the mountains.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the Rockies come through Colorado, right? That's probably where they were at.
yeah. Well, if you listen to John Denver, that's what he says. You just said a Dumb and Dumber, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Thought the Rocky Mountains would be a little rockier than this. Me too.
That
That
John
John
Denver's
Denver's
full of
full of
full of it.
man.
Yeah. But yeah, Abram's like, this is a real West town. We're in the Wild West. I think those are cowboys. I've read about them in books.
And then he yells, "Howdy!" And they respond. And so, yep. And then Tommy says he's got to do something real quick and asks Abram to hold his horse for him. Yes.
It's just the scene. He's like, hang on a second, Abram. I gotta do something really quick. Hold this for me. And he
Yeah.
jumps down, walks up to the door to the bank, pulls his mask up, and walks in with his gun out.
Yeah. He goes right to the point. And
He
then two
does.
seconds later, he comes running out, jumps on and goes, "Ride! Go,
We gotta
go,
go.
go, go, go!"
Abram's
And
like,
so
why? What's going on?
he's like, "I
And
just we just robbed the bank."
Tommy just saw a bank and had to rob it.
They just crossed the mountains, almost died in a blizzard. Or
Right.
they find the first town instead of like resting and getting supplies and whatnot, and then robbing the bank.
Yeah. He just it's civilization. Give me your money. Run.
Yeah. And so, so they make a break for it, and the banker comes out, and the whole town's kind of gathering. He goes, they're shooting at him, and they keep hitting the banker in the face with one of the guns. Is that what happens? The kickback
Yeah.
keeps hitting him,
Yeah.
and he's like, they're getting away. We need to start a posse. And everyone's like, your bank. I don't have any money in there.
Right. It's like we don't care. They're gone
Okay.
now.
We don't care more than just the initial. He's like, well, I'll give you $7. $7 a man. And then they're like, nah, yeah. And this one guy's like, I'll do it for 13. So they haggle back and forth, I guess, and they agree on $11 a man.
Yeah. And there's like 6 guys with the banker.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they get chased down by a posse is now after them.
Yep.
And it cuts to Avram and Tommy, and they are, what's the word?
Resting.
No. Yeah, they took a little respite
Yeah.
to get their bearings and plan. And Avram is very, very angry and takes a swing.
Yeah. You made me a bank robber.
Yeah, and there a tussle. There's a tussle.
Yeah. Yeah. He tells Tommy to get out of his life. That he's wrecked everything.
Yep. And then they argue back and forth and notice that there's a posse after him, and Avram changes his tune, joins Tommy, and they ride off together.
Yes. Yeah. They raid off right quick.
Yeah, yeah, they want to get out of there because Tommy explains that they're not going to take too kindly to him, even though he wasn't really a part of it, and gives them the money back.
Right, right. He's like, "What if I give them the money back?" They're like, "Well, they'll take it back, and then they'll hang you before they after they ask you where the rest of the money is."
Yeah, and so they take off, and they take a cut down a shortcut, or they're riding down the river to not have tracks,
Right.
and they cut sharp to the left down a little creek
Yep.
looking thing that's kind of hidden to buy themselves some time, and then they camp for the night. And true to his word, Tommy cuts the money in half and gives Abram his $320.
Yep.
And Abram says, "All right." And Tommy asks, "What are you gonna do with your money?" And he goes, "Well, as soon as we get to a bank, I'm gonna give it back." And Tommy looks at him and goes, "Well, I'd be careful till then, because someone could get robbed out here." Gene Wilder's so great when he looks back at him and goes, "Then I'll keep my eye out for strangers."
Yeah.
And then we cut to the next day.
Yep.
Abrams doing his praying, and Tommy trying to hustle him along. They get all packed up and they start walking off, and turns out it's Saturday.
Yep. Abram's
And
walking his horse while Tommy's trying to ride off.
yep, and Tommy's like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "It's Saturday. I don't ride." And he goes, "Oh, don't tell me you're not riding today." And he goes, "I'm not riding today." And he goes, "Well, I asked you not to tell me that." And he, just the subtlety and the banter back and forth really makes this movie.
It does.
The way they play off each other, there's obviously a chemistry there,
Yes.
which is it's so weird because the not so weird, but you think of they're different generation actors.
Okay.
You think of Harrison Ford as in like the 80s and the 90s being a big
Yeah.
actor, whereas Gene Wilder was 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have this movie is the overlap of them. Harrison Ford just starting out, Gene Wilder winding down,
Yeah.
so to speak. And so it's just I don't know, to me watching it, it's especially like being as young as I am and as old as the movie is, it's weird to see the generational actors overlap like that.
Makes sense.
At least to me. I don't know. You might feel the same, you might not too. I'd be curious actually to hear what Dad thinks about it. Maybe I'll ask him after it airs.
You should. See what
I
he thinks.
will. Actually, I'll just leave this in there and then he'll contact me and tell me.
Oh yeah. Let us
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Let us know, Dad.
Yeah.
And so they argue for a while over whether or not Abram's gonna ride.
Yes. And Tommy
And
rides off.
Tommy rides off and we see the posse is still on them. And they don't waste a lot of time with this. They want to let you know that he ain't riding Saturday and the posse's still after him.
Yeah. Yeah. It
And
doesn't
now
drag out for too long. I mean, they show him a couple times, him still walking, and Tommy's sitting there kind of waiting for him to show up, catch up.
yeah. And then we get cuts to the posse is pretty close.
Yeah,
And
they've backtracked down the river.
yeah, and sundown is also close. And it's so good because they're walking toward it's like they're walking towards not a mountain but like a big cliffside.
Yeah.
And he's like, now? Not yet. Now? Not yet. You see Abram like watching the sun and he's starting to bend down lower and lower. And then as
Yeah.
soon as the sun crests, he's like, okay, now, and hops on and they ride off real fast.
Yeah. Yeah. He's leaning down to see if the sun can get any lower.
So it shows them riding after this, after they ride off. They're showing passage of time, days going by, till finally they're riding, and Tommy's assuring him that the posse is no longer behind them because it's been 4 days and they don't have any sign. They haven't seen any sign of anyone following them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good.
And,
That's a good estimate.
yeah. And so immediately at that point, they run into natives
Yes.
and they ride off as they're being chased by the natives. They don't waste a lot of time
Yeah.
seeing what's going on. They just see the natives and then they take off in a full sprint on their horses.
Right. Right. He's Tommy's saying that it's been 4 days, no one's chasing him, and Abram's like, then who are they?
Yes, because apparently Tommy didn't notice the 6 Native Americans standing on horseback up on the hillside.
Yeah. They look over like, oh, them, run.
Yeah, and they get
'Cause they are
away.
not best pleased.
They are not what?
The natives aren't best pleased to have them there.
No. And so they get away.
Yep.
But Abram realizes that he dropped the Torah.
Yes. Yes,
And
they
so now
showed it
he's
kind of unraveling off his horse as they were riding away,
yes. And then Abram says he's going to go back for it.
and Tommy says, "I'm not gonna die for you. You're on your own.
Right.
I, I'm not coming with you." It's like I'm not asking you to.
And right. And then it cuts to both of them getting captured
Yes.
because Tommy went with him anyway.
Yes. And Tommy's freaking out.
Yeah, Tommy is in a panic and Abram is singing.
Yes. Yes. Tommy at this point he sees no way out of this. He
Right.
doesn't want to die. He's begging. He's pleading. He's panicking. And Abram is just calm. He's got a serene look on his face, and he starts singing a prayer.
Yeah, I was going to say he starts singing slash praying.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna call it a hymn, but I don't know if
I'm not familiar.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not super familiar. But he starts singing.
And yeah, so they start doing that, and then the chief comes out, and immediately Tommy starts trying to pander to the chief, get in good graces,
Yeah, yeah.
and
This guy's. This is a holy man. He prays every day. He doesn't ride on Saturdays. Even when we robbed the bank, we had to ride. He wasn't riding.
yeah, helping a little too much.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then the chief asks if he can make rain, and oh yeah, he can make rain. We were having buckets of rain, so much rain we didn't know what to do with it all. And you want to talk about snow? And he's like, no, no, no snow. And so the chief walks over to Abram and starts asking him if he would trade his. Ask him first of all, he asks him what he calls it, and he says, Torah.
Yes, because
Says, well,
yeah, the chief has the Torah. He's
yeah, chief
he's
has the
holding it.
Torah. He's holding, yeah,
Like you
and
came back for this, even though you knew we had it.
yeah, even though you knew you were in danger. And he goes, well, I've read this Torah, and I don't understand a word of it. And he goes, you came for this. Would you trade your horse for it? And he says, yes. And he just keeps going down the list. You trade your supplies, your pants, your clothes, everything, anything. And each time, Abram's like, yes. And he goes, well, what about, would you purify your soul with fire?
Yeah. Oh,
And
and he says the knife too. Was like, "Would you trade your knife for it?"
yeah, and he goes, "I have no knife."
And that struck everybody as odd.
Yeah, very odd that he didn't have a knife. And then he asks, "Would you purify your soul with fire for it, Torah?" He said, "Yes." Which,
He kinda glances at Tommy when the as he's before he says yes, and Tommy's shaking his head slowly, "No."
yeah. And so they get him. They start lowering him back
Mhm.
down onto a fire, and the chief gives him one last out and says, "If I get you out of this, can I keep Torah?" And he says, "No."
Yeah,
And so they continue to lower him down, and he starts quietly praying to himself, very stoic and
yeah.
calm. To
Doesn't flinch, kind of
Yeah,
bracing for the pain, but not struggling.
well, I don't know if he's bracing for the pain or the fact that he's lowered down onto these flames and coals, and it is hot and probably burning him.
Yeah,
He can feel what's coming.
yeah.
And upon seeing this, the chief tells him to stop and pull him back up. And he says he's a very brave man. And then turns to Tommy and says he's a very stupid man.
You've got a big heart, but
But you do something about your mouth.
yeah.
And so from there, it cuts to them all in the. It's. I'm assuming it's that night. They're all eating food
Mhm.
and drinking together, and the chief is asking Abram about his god.
Yeah,
And Abrams giving some pretty good answers. It's a pretty good back and forth. I like it.
it is.
Chief's asking, "Well, can your God make rain?" And Abrams like, "Yes." And then he goes, "Well, why doesn't he?" And he goes, "Well, it's not his department." He goes, "But he could if he wanted to." And he goes, "Yes." Well, so what does he do? Well, he makes you compassionate when you're full of hate. He gives you hope when you feel lost. He gives you direction when you feel, what have you. And
Directional.
starts talking about all the things that God does for your soul, and he goes, but what about rain? And Abram goes, he does not make rain. And at that moment, lightning strikes and rain starts pouring, and then Abram goes, huh? He also, and then just like that, he changes his mind. So the rain comes, and he starts eating more of the what is it? Is it peyote they're eating?
I I'm not entirely sure what they're eating, but he says it's a good fruit, that he likes it, and Tommy's like, "I'd watch it with that.
It's not fruit.
It's not fruit." And the chief just kinda bats Tommy's hand away, like, "Eat, keep eating."
Let him go. Let's see what happens. Yeah,
Yeah,
the chief is
I like a
kind of
funny man.
the chief is kind of mischievous.
Yeah, he is. He is. He wants to
Yes,
I mean, it's a different type of person than he's ever seen before, and he's curious.
right. What he's gonna do? And then he asked, what the Jewish people do when they're happy or when they celebrate. And Abram's like, they dance just like your people do. And he's like, okay, well then dance with my people.
Yeah.
And so Abram gets out there and starts teaching them a dance.
Always lead with your left foot.
Yep, always lead with the left, and yeah, it gives a very. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks like they had a lot of fun filming that,
Yeah.
and it looks like a fun dance.
Mhm.
And
It does.
then yeah, so
And then
they're
it gets
getting there.
unfun.
Yeah, it starts to get unfun, but they're going for a
You're
while, and
watching
it
it,
gets
and you can tell Abrams everybody seems to having fun, but you can see the distress kind of in Abrams' face. He's getting faster and faster, and whatever he was eating has been taking effect.
right. And now that he's moving faster and faster, it's pumping it through his system harder
Yep.
because his heart's beating faster. And they're doing some kind of it's a good camera angle of they're showing him, arms up and back and then back forward, arms up and back, and the third time Abram's not there with them, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
They look back and he's on the ground just like, and you can tell he's got the spins. Everything's
Yeah.
everything's spinning on him.
Yep. Everything's spinning. He's feeling fuzzy. He's down.
Yep. And then we cut again to him waking up in what is it, a monastery?
Yep.
In the monastery with a monk looking at him.
Yes. Yes, a monk looking at him. He's got the cross hanging on his robes, and Abram is like, is this it? Am I
Am I
this
dead?
can't yeah, this can't be it, right?
And the guy's like shaking his head no. And then Tommy comes in and starts, oh, you had us real worried there. You got way too messed up last night. And then explains that they're at a monastery and everyone there has had a vow of silence. And one of the guys there hasn't talked for 45 years. And Abram's just appalled by this.
Yeah, it's new to him.
Yeah. And then they're all sitting down eating breakfast, I think. Because, yeah, he said that breakfast is ready. That's where they're walking to as he's explaining what's been going on. And Abram won't shut up at this point.
No.
They're at the table and he's just talking up a storm. He's, oh, no, I know not to ask any questions. But he just sits there and talks and talks and talks. And he's, oh, pass the salt, please. And
Yeah, he's
Tommy
about
pass.
to ask, could somebody pass the salt, but he's like, no, no, salt. I need salt. Pass the salt, please.
Yeah,
Trying not to form it in a question that somebody could answer.
right. So Tommy grabs it, passes it to the monk that woke him up. The monk that woke him up passes it to him, and he goes, "Thank you." And the guy goes, "You're welcome." And then gasps and claps his hands over his mouth.
It looks down at the old monk at the very end of the table.
Yeah, and then everyone starts laughing.
Yeah, the old monk just kind of, you see the smile creep on his face. They all start laughing, and it's
It's hysterical.
politeness wins out.
It does. And so we cut to Harrison Ford glaring at a Wells Fargo,
Yep.
and then we see Abram coming out of it, and he's like, "You really gave all the money back, didn't you?" And then he's like,
It's like, yes.
"Yes, I told you I was going to." And Harrison Ford's like, "Well, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to the saloon, gonna do a couple things, then I'm gonna go rob the bank and get my money back."
And this time it'll all be mine.
And then he storms off. And then we cut to nighttime.
Yep. Abram's just been hanging out in town.
Yeah, he's hanging out in the street. He looks bored. He
He
does
does look
look
bored.
bored.
Yes.
And so he's sitting there and a guy comes out of the saloon and goes, "You," and does a little jig. And Abram sees that and he goes, shrugs, "Yeah," and does his own little jig. And the sheriff sees him and goes, "Hey, we don't allow dancing in the street here. If you want to do that, go in the saloon." And he does.
Yeah, he heads into the saloon.
Walks in there and sees the guy playing the 88s,
Yeah,
right?
I the piano, yes. The 88s.
Yes. How often do you get to say the 88s?
Not that often.
The guy's in there and he's playing the 88s real good.
Yes. And Abram comments on it. It's like, "You're playing really nice. Do you mind if I watch?"
Which it just gets awkward because the guy keeps looking at him too. And while he's watching the guy tickle the 88s, beat that horse to death.
It's
And
okay.
while he's watching the guy play the piano, he hears a familiar voice and looks over and he sees Daryl, Marshall, and Mr. Jones.
His name's Matt, but yes. He
And
sees his
he,
friends from Philadelphia.
yes, he walks over there
This
and
is Hitch Mob Revenge.
yeah, and he taps Marshall on the shoulder. Marshall turns, and he's wearing the necklace that was stolen that I didn't mention until just now.
Yeah, yeah, the part of the ornaments of the Torah.
Yeah. And he just rips it off his neck and walks away. And they let him have that one.
Yes.
They let him have that one. He takes his thing back, his ornament back.
Yep.
And walks away and hands it to the guy playing the piano.
Yes, he does.
And at this point, he could have just walked away.
Yes.
He ain't going to do that, though.
No. No, he's not.
Because he walks back up to Marshall and demands his money back.
Yes, he does.
And Marshall just laughs at him. Like that.
Yes. It's like, "Oh, you want your money back?"
And then he shoves him.
Yeah.
Like, get lost, get out of here. And so then Abram comes back up and decks him.
Yeah.
Punches him right in the nose.
It's a good punch. Not a lot behind it, but
he made a point.
It's a solid punch.
Yeah, it's gonna get him killed now, but it
Yeah.
was a solid punch. And I think that's what Marshall ends up saying to him is, "Well, we're gonna kill you."
Yeah. Like, "Oh, we're
Just
gonna kill
very,
you."
very calmly, like, "Oh, now, like, this is what's gonna happen now." And so they beat him up pretty good again.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
I I did, however, like that he grabbed the glass and smashed it over Daryl's head.
Oh, yeah, that was great. He got put up against the bar, and he grabbed the glass, gave Daryl a good one.
Yeah,
He got his shots in,
rung his bell.
but it was still 3 on 1.
Yeah, and no one in that saloon's jumping in to help him.
Nope.
And so Marshall tells them to put him on the bar, and they're gonna beer
Yeah.
barrel him,
Yep.
which that's looks like it's gonna be pretty brutal because they're literally gonna slam his face with a miniature
Yeah, they
beer
were
barrel.
they were gonna end him there.
Yeah, like you said, they were gonna kill him,
Yeah.
and that
So,
that would have done it. And so
Marshall picks up the beer barrel.
and we hear a gunshot, and Harrison Ford, who character's name is Tommy,
Tommy.
has stepped in, saved the day, and he just like give him the $200 back, put the $200 on the bar, and goes, "You, how much money do you have?" And he's like, Daryl's like, "Oh," or that's Mr.
Mr.
Jones.
Jones, yeah.
Mr. Jones, I 82, and he goes, "Yeah, put that up there too." So might as well rob him also.
Right, right, and Matt or Marshall is still standing there with the barrel up above his head, and it's leaking,
Beer onto his
beer
face.
onto his face.
Yep, and then he's like, "Put the barrel down." He puts the barrel down and goes, "Three of you, get out of here." And as they're walking out, Mr. Jones sees some money on some of his winnings
Yeah.
and reaches over to grab some, and he's like, "Leave it."
Now the 3 of you, go away.
Yeah. Nice Harrison Ford impression.
Thank you.
That was good. I'm gonna leave that in.
Yay.
Wow, that was impressive.
Thank you.
And so yeah, from there, Tommy goes
Yes.
over to Abram, spills beer on his face to wake him up,
Mhm.
and tells him, "I got your $200 back, and then we got a lot more. We should celebrate." And Abram's like, "Yeah, I'm game."
Let's have fun.
Yeah. And so they do. And now we cut to them overlooking the ocean.
Yes.
You looked like you had to think about that. I have
No,
notes.
no, they made it to the ocean where they're supposed to turn, put the ocean on your left, and keep going until you get to San Francisco.
Yep. And this is where Tommy says it's time to part ways. And Abram's like, "Or you could just come with me to San Francisco." And then there's a very touching moment of them talking about how they're each other's best friends. Abram gets all teary-eyed and says, "You're my only friend, and you need to be the best man at my wedding.
Yeah.
So you keep your eye on this Tookus."
And don't take it off until we get to San Francisco.
Right. And then they're off.
Yeah, and Tommy's like, "Oh, I haven't had a best friend before."
Yep. And then they leave for San Francisco, and it cuts to them playing on the beach.
Yep. They've decided to
And,
take a break.
yep. And the bad guys show up, and the bad guys, which leads to a full-on gunfight.
Yes.
Tommy shoots Mr. Jones right in the forehead.
Yeah, he's
Pretty quick,
he's
drops him
down
down.
pretty quick.
Tommy also shoots Marshall in the head. More of a
Grazes him.
graze.
Yeah.
Grazes, yeah. And Marshall runs off like a coward.
Yeah.
Tommy gets shot by Daryl. Daryl and Tommy
Yes.
having a shootout, and they both run out of ammo. Abram gets the gun that Mr. Jones had, or no, that Marshall dropped when he got hit.
One of the guns, yeah, but during the shootout, Daryl throws the Tor on the fire,
Right. Yes, very
and
important.
yeah, he throws the
Abram,
Tor on the fire, and Abram runs to save it in the middle of the shootout. I think Mr.
right,
Jones is down at this point, but Daryl is still shooting back and forth with Tommy.
right. And I think Marshall's run off at this point too.
Yeah.
And that's where he finds himself close to the gun to get it. And so he's aiming the gun at Daryl, who is out of ammo but sees Mr. Jones's gun.
Yep.
And so he's going for Mr. Jones's gun. Abram is just holding the gun on him. but not doing anything. Meanwhile,
Yep.
Tommy is screaming for him to shoot him
Yeah.
because if he gets to that gun, he's gonna kill us both. And right as he gets to the gun, Abram shoots him dead.
Yep. He gave him every opportunity to not continue to do this, but
It got
Daryl
to
was
the point
still
of,
Daryl didn't think he would actually shoot, but
and turns out he did.
yes.
Anyway, we cut to, well, they check up on each other after all the bad guys are gone.
Yeah, Avram runs over to see Tommy injured. Tommy's like, "I've been hurt worse before."
We'll get the saddlebags, get the whiskey, and something to patch me up, and we'll be good to go. Then we cut to them all fixed up and camping for the night, and Tommy's a little drunk,
Yep.
being silly. Not really much happens there. So
Nope.
we wake up.
We see Avram is kind of a little zoned out at that point. Tommy's asking me if he's okay. He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Um,
Yeah.
just
He's like,
brushing
"Oh,
it
you
off.
never killed a man before." So we go to the next day. They're riding down the beach, and then it cuts to that night, and he's dropping off the Torah to the people who are waiting for him.
Yeah. Yeah, Tommy is off spending his newly acquired funds on a nice outfit while Avram is delivering the Torah to the, I guess, leader of the Jewish community out in San Francisco.
Yeah, I guess that's who it is. But he knocks on the door and he meets Rosalie, who is the younger daughter,
Yes.
not the one that he is promised. And it
Nope.
seems like they get googly eyes for each other.
Yeah, they both kind of like, "Oh."
And but he very poorly fakes being a cowboy
Yeah.
and runs off.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, my friend the rabbi said I should bring this by if I'm in the area and I got to go."
That's the gist of it, yeah. And so we cut back to them having a steak dinner
Yep. Tommy in his nice new outfit.
because he did not give because they stole. That's right. They have money now
Yeah.
because they got the money back from the bad guys and then some.
Do
And
we know if Tommy ever went back to rob that Wells Fargo? Who knows? But
he probably didn't need to after that.
no, robbing those guys was good enough for him.
Yeah, that was enough. And they start chatting, and we find out that Abram ran off because he says he can't be a rabbi because of not because he killed a man, but because instead, when there was gunfight was going on and his friend's life was in danger, he went for a book instead of his buddy.
And Tommy's like, "You're a man of God. I understand that. I forgive you."
Yeah, he's very, very cool about this whole
Yeah,
thing.
we. It's like we both survived. It's fine.
Yeah, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, it's like I know. Yeah, I get it. But
Yeah,
Abram is
and
is not happy with himself for how he
how
chose
he
he said, "I chose a piece of paper over my best friend," and that's not sitting with him well.
right from there, the family that has been waiting for him shows up at the restaurant, bar,
Yeah, the tavern
tavern, pub.
or bar, pub. Yeah, but this is one of the instances where Tommy's yelling at him pretty good. Like, "Don't say you're not a
Yeah,
rabbi. You're a rabbi. I'm."
bouncing and rolls off of his head.
Yeah, it's like, "I'm a bank robber. How come I get to be what I am, but you don't get to be a rabbi like you are?" So,
Yeah, so they're interrupted when the family that they were there to see tracks him down, and they now
right.
think that Tommy is the rabbi since Abram is the cowboy,
Right, and Abrams dressed a little
like a
rougher
cowboy.
at that
Yeah,
cowboy right now, and Tommy's got his brand new outfit,
that's right.
and his
And
hair's all slicked back, or just
right,
not messy. It's kind of like freshly cleaned.
yeah. And so Abram reveals himself. He says not to judge a book by its cover. He's been writing all the way across the United States. And he was just talking to his friend here, and he slowly starts taking off his cowboy garb and reveals himself to be the rabbi.
Yes,
And so, in the light of this,
rabbi suit up scene.
yes, they are very happy that he is there, and so he's the dad, the father guy, the leader guy is off to buy drinks for everybody in
Yes,
celebration. And we see Marshall's face pop up in the window.
yep.
Bad Marshall, evil Marshall.
But Tommy
And
sees him.
Tommy sees him and he goes to check it out. He gets knocked out because the guy knocks him out.
Yeah, yeah, Matt. His name's Matt, not Marshall. Hits him with a two
Evil
by four.
Marshall, evil Marshall
Evil
bashed him
Marshall.
over.
Yes.
Bad Marshall. And so there's a little bit of an awkward scene where the dad is apologizing that the younger daughter, not the older daughter, is going to be offered in marriage, and turns out that works out great because they like each other anyway, and they start to dance.
Yeah.
And that dance is broken up with Evil Marshall. Our bartender's like, he calls the bartender out. He goes, "Barkeep, get out here!" And Barkeep comes out and goes, "What's going on here?" He goes, "That man killed my brother.
He killed my brother Daryl.
Killed my brother Daryl," with the accent and everything. So
Killed
he
my
sounds
brother
in.
Daryl. I mean, barkeep. I mean, in the tavern, that setting, he's the patron. He's the owner of the bar. So I guess he would be the representation. They wanted a authority figure. I mean, he's a pillar of the community.
Sure.
So just and the marshal's not there, or the sheriff's not there, or any of the law enforcement. So you own this place. I want
Yeah.
this on the record.
That it's going to be a fair fight and
Yep.
whatnot. And Abram says, "No more killing. It's over." And Evil Marshall's not having it. And the
He's like,
bar,
what if I shoot one of them?
yeah, he makes threats that about hurting the innocent people in the bar.
Yeah.
And the bartender's like, "You know what? You killed his brother. Both of you outside, handle it."
Right. He's like, "Is that true?" And Abram, yes, like, yes, it's true. I mean, no context needed at this point
Right.
by the
So they step
patron. It's just
so they step outside. Abram doesn't have a gun, so Evil Marshall gives him the same gun that he killed Daryl with.
yeah.
Aw.
Same gun he used to kill my brother Daryl.
And so, yeah, he gives him the gun. He walks, what, 15 paces and turns,
Yeah.
tells him to draw,
Like, make your
and
move,
and
Rabbi.
and he just does nothing but stare at him.
Yep.
And I mean, and so Evil Marshall draws and like shoots by him 3 or 4 times,
Yeah.
and he doesn't even flinch,
Nope. He's just
like
staring them down.
staring him
It's like, no
down.
more
And
no more killing.
that, yeah, he means it.
Yep.
And so he decides that he's gonna, instead of shooting him, he's gonna bash his skull in. So he turns the gun around and charges, and Abram gets out of the way, knocks him over, kicks him in the butt, and draws his gun on him
Yep.
and says, "It's done, it's over, no more killing."
Yeah. He
He goes
says,
for the what?
"Oh, no, you're right. No, there's more. You go. Keep going."
Yeah. So Evil Marshall reaches for the gun, and someone shoots it further away from him, and turns out Tommy is back, and he's like,
Yep.
"Go for it again, I please."
Yeah. His face is red
He's
from where he got
mad.
hit, but like where he got hit by the board too. It's just you can see the
Not here
mark.
so much or here, but right here.
He's like, "You
And
go for that gun one more time, I'm gonna blow your head off.
yeah, and
Go for it, please."
very nice. And Tommy clarifies that yes, Abram did kill the brother because, and then gives the details on what those three had done to Abram and were planning to do had he not. And
Right.
that changes everybody's tune.
Yeah, it's like if the
And
rabbi hadn't shot him, we'd both be dead.
right. And Abram is like, "You know what? I have a solution. This is a very, very big country. So I'll take San Francisco and you take everywhere else. And it'll
Yeah.
be fine." And Evil Marshall just stares him down, and Abram says, "Can someone please help this gentleman out of town?" And they pick him up and they carry him out of town.
Yep.
And then we cut to the wedding.
Yep. Wedding happens quick.
Wedding happens quick. They stomp on the glass and break it. Abram kisses the bride. Tommy kisses the bride. Pastor kisses the bride. Or officiant kisses the bride.
Her father.
Her father kisses the bride.
Yeah. Yeah, Abram kisses the bride, Tommy kisses the bride, and her father moves him out of the way a little bit. It's like,
That's
"Okay,
right.
you're done. Stop it."
Like, nope.
He kisses the bride, and then the dancing starts.
And then they dance, and then roll credits.
and during the credits is the celebration of the wedding, the dancing, and
Yeah.
the mother crying throughout the whole thing.
Yes. Which bothered Rachel because it wasn't it they took like a 10-second audio clip of the mother crying and just put it on a loop.
Yeah.
And it annoyed Rachel very, very much. But so we watched
Oh.
this last night and then we got through the credits and guess what was at the end of the credits?
What's at the end of the credits?
The movie started over. But we sure rushed because we thought there was something.
It just started over?
Yeah, but it showed because it started because we were brushing our teeth getting ready for bed, and she looks over and you see all the old Jewish men of the Jewish council talking at the table, and she's like, "Honey, honey, honey," and I'm like, "What? Oh gosh, what am I missing?" And so I'm watching it, like ready to take notes again, and then I see the little kid run out into Abram ice skating again, and I go, "Oh,
Oh, it
it
just
just started
reset.
over." Hysterical though. But
Yeah.
anyway, that was
The Frisco Kid.
thank you, the Frisco Kid.
Do you
I
want me to give
forgot.
my final thoughts?
Yes, please give your final thoughts. I've been talking
I
for a long time.
so I growing up, I watched this movie a few times. It wasn't a big rotation movie for me, but I did enjoy it and watched it a handful of times. It was one of the ones on the VHS shelf.
Yes,
And I still enjoy it. I love the friendship that forms. You can see from these two strangers that go through everything they go through on their road trip. The reluctance, the the banter is fun. The friendship that builds up, like, well, I'm not doing this, and he ends up doing it anyway because that's what you do. And
yeah,
it's it is a it's a really fun, very sweet movie,
I agree.
and I will watch it again.
Good.
What are your final thoughts?
I agree with you completely. I enjoyed this movie. It was not as funny as I anticipated it being or remembered it being.
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of, I mean, originally you came at it as oh, this is going to be this is a Mel Brooks movie.
Right. So
And so
having that
you
meant
had it funnier in your head because Mel Brooks movies are generally more joke, 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 joke with the little bit of pauses.
yeah,
But this is just a road trip western with comedic moments. I wouldn't call it a comedy, it's none completely, but
right. It's definitely a good movie and watching it for this was the first time Rachel had ever seen it and
oh,
she
really?
loved it. Yeah. She had never seen it before. So that was fun to experience the movie that way. I don't remember watching it as a kid. I don't know if I ever did, but I like it. I will watch it again. You pretty much touched on all the good points of it. It's a wonderful movie about growth and friendship and camaraderie.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's pretty much my final thoughts on it. Great movie. Gonna watch it again. Love it. Glad I own it.
nice.
So that wraps up the Frisco Kid. Now I get to find out what Marshall has in store for me next.
Yes. Well, you did this movie as a Happy Father's Day to Dad, um, and since it's releasing on Father's Day, it lines up really well. Um, I am going to jump on that bandwagon.
Oh boy.
And do another movie that I know Dad likes that I don't know if he's seen in a while, and I haven't seen it in a while, and I'm not sure you ever seen it. But you did bring it. You did say the name of the movie. I want to say 2 or 3 movies ago as one that somebody else wrote. So in like the opening specs, you're like, and this movie was written by this guy who did these other things. But that
Okay.
doesn't give it that doesn't help
That's
you at all because
that doesn't know. That was hard to follow.
I yeah, um, but in the same vein, Happy Father's Day, Dad. This next one we are gonna do The Last Starfighter, and by the look on your face, I can tell you don't even know what movie that is.
Last Starfighter. Is that like that cheesy 80s movie with the little kid?
No.
Not Flight of the Navigator.
I Way to narrow it down. Cheesy 80 movie with a kid in it.
No, which is the last Starfighter?
It's about a kid that gets taken up to be part of a, intergalactic war as a starfighter.
Like
And like it
but he's playing like a video game.
yeah, he plays the video game. It's like a test to find out
Yeah,
who the
he plays a video game and he does well, and then they come and
yeah,
kidnap him and they take him up.
yeah, but he's not a little kid, he's like 19.
Right. Okay. I've watched part of this movie.
Hey, at least you know the premise.
Yeah. Okay. I'm completely and utterly surprised at this choice.
This is a movie I watched a few times with dad growing up, and like I said, I hadn't seen it in a while. I have the book. I picked that up from, uh, Half Price Books, about a year ago. I haven't gotten around to reading it, but maybe I will after we watch the movie again. But, um, yeah, that's what we're doing.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you to everyone who joined us for our adventure. What movie did we watch?
The Frisco Kid,
Thank you to everyone who joined us through our
Adventure Through the Wild West.
uh, adventure through the Wild West and the Frisco Kid. This was a fun one. We look forward to you joining us next time as we take a look at The Last Starfighter.
Yes,
Starfighter?
the last the last starfighter.
The Last Starfighter coming up next. If you'd like to reach out to us, you could do so watchitbropodcast at gmail.com, on Twitter at watchitbropod. We're also on Facebook and Instagram under the same handle. Our intro and outro music is provided by Nihilore, that intro being Haven, that outro being Grace. Nope. That outro being Grace, that
The intro?
our intro and outro music is provided by Nihilore, that intro being Grace, that outro being Haven. And as always, thank you for watching.